Well, welcome everybody to the Hobsons Bay. Welcome everybody to the Hobsons Bay Yacht Club Lockdown Catch-Ups. Tonight's title is Every Sailing Hour is a Happy Hour, hosted by Gary and Fiona Prestedge. Tonight's talk is about their 5-month sabbatical, cruising their catamaran up the Queensland coast. I think we'll hand over to Gary and Fiona and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Craig. Man of many words, eh?
That's awesome.
All right, I'm going to share screen. And hopefully what we practiced is going to work. Look at that.
Oh, there it is.
That's fantastic.
There we go.
Perfect.
So, and we can see you guys down the side. So this time last week, we didn't make last week's presentation because we were on a plane coming home from Townsville. So this is our end of week 1 in the much colder lockdown climate and location, which we're all used to, I know, but we haven't been for, as Craig said, quite a few months. So what I'm going to try and do, Gary's here to answer questions. Rod asked Gary if he would do a presentation, and he said, I don't do presentations, but Fiona will. And so Fiona's going to talk. And if you've got any questions along the way, pop them in the chat. Craig's our host. He's supposed to be keeping track of them, so I'm sure he'll butt in and say stuff along the way. And we'll see how we go. Gary took this photo. This is actually of our Whitehaven Beach up in the wet Sundays. So that was one of the places that we went.
Fantastic.
So we left, Gary and Craig actually left Melbourne on the 23rd of April, and we've split this into a couple of parts. They did a delivery trip from Melbourne through to Mooloolaba, and I flew up mid-May just before lockdown number 4. And I flew up to Mooloolaba, worked there for a couple of weeks to finish work, and then Gary and I started our cruising up the coast in June. The positives for us were that we've had a fantastic trip, a fantastic journey. We've learned that we can live together on a boat. We didn't know whether we could live together on a boat for an extended period of time. We can. So that's good. We're still both alive. And we've learned about tides, anchoring. We use headphones if anyone is thinking of doing it themselves. Lifesaver, saves relationships really well. The negative side for us, I suppose, is as much as we've had a great trip, our kids couldn't join us, our friends couldn't join us. So Jacko, Heidi, Kev, for example, were coming up to join us. No one could do that part. So that part of our holiday where we shared it with others, we couldn't do other than, through Facebook and MS Messenger and all of those kind of things. But for us, it was a great pre-retirement experience, and we certainly will be doing it again Gary thinks he's already retired, but I've got a few years to go. So we will be doing it again in years to come. So some of you may well know, we used to have one for the road, which was monohull race boat. And in 2018, we, as did Kevin, was with us too, raced one for the road from Sydney to Noumea. And then Heidi and I joined them, and we cruised one for the road back home after that. And we really enjoyed the cruise. So we sold one for the road and bought a catamaran. So this is the beginning, if you like, of our little cruising journey. Our plan this year had actually been to go back to New Caledonia in a Go East rally. And we were going to be going to New Caledonia and Vanuatu, but COVID put an end to that. So probably in a few years' time, we'll try that one again. So a little bit about the boat. Happy Hours is a Lagoon 38 catamaran. So it's just under 12 metres long. It's almost half as much, again, of that wide. And it's got a 1.15 metre draft. Having sailed on a monohull, that 1.15 metres is so good, especially up in the Queensland coast. There's so many places we could go that on the old boat we wouldn't have been able to do. We don't have a HF, but we do have a VHF radio, and we use Iridium Go sat phone, or we have one there. Our plotter is a Raymarine Axiom plotter, and before we left, we got a duplicate screen outside at the helm station. So we've got 2 screens. We use auto helm. We use auto helm a lot. We've got 2 diesel engines, lots of diesel fuel, and a nice big power system. And we carry 600 litres of water, which, you know, up and down the coast of Australia is really easy. We don't have a water maker or any of those kind of things. We met some people who do and some who don't. Probably for what we were doing, we didn't need one. I suspect if we go and do some international travel, we'll make sure we get one. But that's a little bit about our boat. And then just on the Iridium Go, we actually use Predict Wind for our Iridium Go, and you can't see it very well in the picture. But Predict Wind, we can subscribe to a tracker, and we subscribed to a tracker that actually meant people could track, if we sent them the link, track our journey. So the kids were able to know where we were at any time, as were my family in Perth. So they would watch and know where we were at any time. So it's a really useful little thing to have, I think. And we've actually got a download of it now, so we can turn it into a poster at some stage. These were the reference guides we used for our trip. Around the Whitsundays, this 100 Magic Miles book, for those of you who haven't been up there, is really, really useful. And then we also used a bundle of apps. I need to move all you people because I can't see my screen. But so we used a few weather apps. When we were in Mooloolaba, we caught up with Dan Hellier from Dingo. And he put us on to buoy weather, which is I think we paid for it, but it wasn't much. Really good because it gives you a 16-day outlook. So it was a really nice one to have. We used marine traffic, found our tracker was more useful. But marine traffic's good for seeing who else is around. And Zulu Waterways was useful for us as well to look at anchorages and recommendations of other people. And Navionics, obviously, for some of our planning. So that's a little bit about what we used to work out what we were going to do, where we were going to go. So let's start. I've broken it into about 4 different parts. And part 1 was the delivery trip to Queensland. So I didn't do this part, but Jacko and Gary departed Savage's Wharf. Here they are here, leaving on the 23rd of April, just on the long weekend for Anzac. And I understand they had a fabulous little trip up the coast, and they got to Pittwater. We usually bypass Sydney Harbour and go straight up to Pittwater. And they got to Pittwater with, you didn't stop, did you? You went straight through. No. So they went straight through. They got there in about 4 days. 4 days. And bit of sailing, bit of motor sailing, but
we nearly sailed all the way up to Jarvis Bay, and then we had to motor the rest of the way because it was a little bit light. And I like to do 6 knots. That's my
terrain. Yeah.
Close down speed.
Well, after listening to Eddie last week that he took 2 weeks to get there, we did it two-handed in 3.5 days. Well,
yeah,
sorry, not on.
That's only because we're good, Jacko. But we had great wind the whole time. It was really good. Yeah. So I did have to wake up Jacko once. Yeah. So, didn't I, Jacko?
Lucky, yeah, one of us. Yeah. One of us had to shake someone's leg, but we'll leave it at that because you're the skipper.
Yeah, no, so
it was really good. We hadn't sailed that long together. We'd sailed a lot of short races in the bay.
Yep.
It was sort of learning each other, and I think it worked really well. And I think we sort of looked at refuge, but we were trucking along so well at that 6 knots that we just kept going. And then we just got into watches because we've both done a lot of ocean racing too. So that sort of the experience there sort of helped. And we got through till we got down the bottom where we had a bit of trouble with navigation and the beeper going off.
Yeah.
That's okay, because at 2 o'clock in the morning, you love touching the button every 1 minute so it doesn't beep.
but I know how to fix that now.
Yeah, now. Yeah.
So we
Well,
have.
I won't have to worry because I won't be bringing the boat back in that part. Someone else will have to worry.
Oh,
Kevin,
okay.
no problem.
All right. Okay.
Kevin.
You did tell me you don't do south.
No, I don't do south. I do south to Sydney, but that's about as far as I do south.
Nah.
So just explain the 75, 73, 82, 60, 96, 85.
But they're the
nautical miles.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Miles,
Yep.
you reckon? It's more nautical miles, is it?
Yep,
Mhm.
that's
Yep.
it.
Awesome.
So, yeah, Jacko was very good at keeping a log on his phone about what we were going to do and where we ended up and what time we were going to start. Yeah, so he
Not many miles.
excellent
I was
like that.
I was a bit time poor because I had to get somewhere else when we could travel. Like I was on another trip, so we sort of worked out it was more about me at the time, and that I could fly home from a major airport, not a bus from Eden or something like that. I think that was the original conversation.
Yeah, that was our. You know, if you could get me to Eden, I'm good. Yeah, but yeah.
I said I'm a travel snob. I'm not coming home on a bus.
Jacko and I share similar rules there.
Yeah.
And then when I got on happy hours and it's got a coffee machine and a soda stream, ovens, double sink. Well, I think I could stay a bit longer.
So we stayed a bit longer and did the trip from Pittwater to Mooloolaba as well.
As John Nielsen would say, Mooloolaba.
But again, the guys did it. Oh, well, Mike Harrington joined you for that piece as well from Pittwater.
From Pittwater.
It was handy having a person too.
Yeah. You can see they did a couple of quite long days there, and actually most of those were long days, would have been long days. They did have some time they spent in Coffs Harbour, and you caught up with Marshy, yeah.
Eric Marsh.
Yeah, Eric and Brenda. That was really nice.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
When they got to Gold Coast, it was Jacko's birthday. So actually, that's not the birthday picture.
That's still
That's
at
at
Mooloolaba.
Mooloolaba. I didn't put the birthday picture in.
Yeah, well, we probably shouldn't because I think I remember last conversation. I remember on that night we were all talking about getting a Mike Tyson face tattoo.
That's it.
I think it was some scenes from that movie, The Hangover, that would come to mind.
But we're talking about it.
Well, yes, we are talking about it. Sitting in Cavill Avenue in an Irish pub, watching the strange people going past. They're probably looking at three strange people, so I guess we're even.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Great, yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah.
So Mike and Jacko helped Gary get the boat to Mooloolaba, and that's where Jacko and Mike flew home, and I flew up to Mooloolaba and joined Gary. I actually flew up a little bit sooner than had originally been planned because we had the beginnings of a COVID outbreak here in Melbourne. That was COVID outbreak number 4, and it looked like it was going to turn ugly. So I went, I'm out of here now. I'm not going to be locked down or locked out of Queensland. And I got there with about, I reckon, 3 days to spare before Palaszczuk locked down Brisbane and wouldn't let Victorians in. So I got there just in time, which was really fortunate, or Gary would have done the whole cruise all by himself. So what I'll do now is I've split our trip into 3 different parts. And most of it is just pictures to prompt me of different places we've been to talk to. So the first thing we did was we had to wait a few days before we could leave Mooloolaba, actually, because it was a little bit windy. So we were in the marina along with good other dozen boats, I think, who were all just waiting for the right weather window to get out of Mooloolaba Heads, because the river that you go through is, if I could have shown you a video, but I'm not that clever, the heads at Mooloolaba gets a little bit of surf up. Yeah. So anyhow, we had a really nice morning. We left about 5 in the morning. The other reason for waiting for our weather window was to cross Wide Bay Bar, which I'll talk about in a minute. So we did Mooloolaba through to Fraser Island and Hervey Bay, spelled incorrectly. Then we did Hervey Bay through to Bundaberg, Pancake Creek, which was beautiful. And then from there we went to the Keppel Islands, and I would go back to the Keppel Islands anytime as a nice little place to go. It was just beautiful and warm and gorgeous water. So if we take that first bit though, out of Mooloolaba ourselves, and almost if we looked at Marine Tracker on the day, flotilla of boats behind us left early in the morning here to a place called Double Island Point. And this picture here is Double Island Point. You actually come around a cape here and you go around this little bit of sandbar, and it's a real protected little bay behind it, which is great if you're in a catamaran. If you're in a monohull, you can't go quite as far in as we were able to. And so for some of the monohulls, it was a little bit rolly, but for us, it was gorgeous. So that was our first day. And we were all there waiting for the right weather window to cross Wide Bay Bar, which takes you in behind Fraser Island. And you have to call the Coast Watch, and they text to you the waypoints to go into the Wide Bay Bar, and they kind of give you the time of the day that you need to go, or the hours between. You have to go at a certain point of the tide, generally around high tide, and they tell you not to waver off their waypoints. So follow this route and you'll be fine, which we did, as did all those other 20 boats around us. And a whole lot of us did the same trip. There were about probably 2 coming the other way out, and just about everybody had been waiting because we'd had some pretty windy weather that meant it wasn't safe to go through the bar.
It has to be about under 1.5 meters of wave.
Yeah. So it was quite uneventful, which was nice. Because it was my first time doing this, but it was.
Would that be a good time to say, Gary, about going into a lot of those bars and all those things? The local advice was always very good and helpful, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. But even when we were coming up the coast, we actually radioed or iPhoned VMR, Volunteer Marine Rescue, each time to make sure of the entries and the leads and the waves. And bar crossings are not all that fun, but you just need to make sure you're on the right track. Yeah, so
it's sort of good to get the local advice too, isn't it? So
Yep. And we did that as we were coming up. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's good. Fortunately, going up the Queensland coast, we didn't have to worry about many bars. So it's really up the New South Wales coast. Once you get through this one, there weren't many we had to worry about. The other thing we didn't do was we didn't get out to Percy, and we didn't get out to some of the reefs. So that's either for the trip home or the next trip up. And again, some of that was just the weather window we had at the time, and some of those places were early in our trip, and we were still learning about tides and what our boat couldn't do, and what we couldn't do on our boat. So we kind of didn't do everything that you might do if you did a wish list for your trip. Mary's Anchorage is one of the places on Fraser Island, so we had to stop there, and we found quite a few places where we could get ourselves off the boat and go for some really nice walks. So these ones here are all Fraser Island. And so we did a couple of walks at Gary's Anchorage. We spent a little bit of time in this little bay here. And then we moved up to where Kingfisher Resort is, which is called North White Cliffs, I think. And then we left from there and went out to Hervey Bay through the Great Sandy Straits. Interestingly, you have to watch the tide doing that as well. So as we were going through the Great Sandy Straits, we did come across at least two other boats that had managed to ground themselves because they didn't follow the channel markers. And all they can do is wait for high tide to come back in. There was one was a monohull, and they were just kind of off the boat and sitting on the ground just waiting. So there's nothing you can really do for them. They've just got to wait for the water to come back in.
3.5 metre tide through the back there when we were going through. So
and we saw our first whale as we were going out of the Straits and into Harvey Bay. So that was kind of exciting. From there, we headed towards Bundaberg, but we spent a night at a place called Busted Head. So this here is the view from the Busted Head Lighthouse Walk. And I started to discover beautiful sunsets. So this is one of the sunsets. I can't remember how many I put in here. But those of you who see us on Facebook will have seen quite a few sunsets across our trip because, hey, they're pretty. And Pancake Creek was another spot that you really had to watch the tide as you came in. I think actually Peter, a couple of weeks ago, Neros talked about it, and they didn't go into Pancake Creek in their boat. They're obviously in a monohull. This picture here is at low tide, and at high tide, you can't see that sand that those birds are on. So it's kind of that amount of movement. Gorgeous spot.
And the Busted Head Lighthouse.
Oh, the Busted Head Lighthouse, yes. That was one of our first long walks, and up quite a hilly walk for us. So the other thing we've learned is we need to get a little bit fitter for our walking. We had good shoes, so that's good, but need to be a little bit fitter. But the Busted Head Lighthouse has volunteers look after it now, and they have it as a tourist spot, and they show you around a bit. But it was one of the first light stations, as they call it, of its type in Queensland, on the coast. So, quite an interesting little spot. Don't forget your donation for them, though. I went back and did it online afterwards. So, fortunately, he still showed us around a little bit. When we were due to leave Pancake Creek, there'd been a bit of thunderstorms and rain overnight. So we thought, well, we'll wait. Bom had a thunderstorm warning. Bom lifted the thunderstorm warning. We went, that's okay. We've got time to go. Off we went. And about 11 o'clock that morning, they reissued the thunderstorm warning. So we travelled from Pancake Creek through to a spot called Hummocky Island on our way to Great Keppel Island. Through a little bit of thunderstorm kind of weather. That was fine. The forecast at that time was for some nice southeasterly winds, and Hummocky would have been a great little spot to hide away for some southeasterly winds. The problem we had that night was that those southeasterly winds became northerly, I think.
Northeast.
And there was a bit of swell there as well, and it was
our worst night of the whole trip.
Totally our worst night. Very rocky and rolly. And we met some people at Great Keppel who had also spent that night at Hummocky. It was their worst night too. Yeah. So Hummocky sits in our mind, not for the beautiful island it might have been, but for the worst night of our trip. But we did, we survived it, obviously. The other thing we did before we moved, or Gary did before we went on our trip, was he bought a new anchor. So we've got a nice heavy Rockner
25 Rockner
anchor. It was great the whole trip. It did its job perfectly in really nasty winds as well as light winds. It was terrific. This is Great Keppel, and this is our first island where we came across abandoned hotels and resorts. So in a lot of the islands, and I think it's post some of the big cyclones that have happened in the 2000s, these resorts have just been abandoned. And so some of them have caretakers, some of them don't. You can kind of walk around them, but you can't walk through them. And this particular one has also had a lot of vandalism.
I went to Great Keppel Island when I was 17 at Sharpie Nationals in Yeppoon, and it was the best place and we had the best time ever. And it was just so sad to see how dilapidated it was now. It just,
So the graffiti that you left is still there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, it was still operating when I left.
He was able to go hide in that one.
Oh, that's mine.
These are some of the views of of the Keppels from the top of the hill. See, more evidence that we did actually walk up a hill. And this one's from one of the beaches. We actually stayed, there's a few little bays around the Keppel Islands, and we stayed at, the first one we came to was Fisherman's Bay, and then there was a change in the wind forecast and we went around the side a little bit to Svenson's Beach. Both of them beautiful. At Svenson's Beach, we actually saw dugongs.
Dugongs, yeah.
So really difficult to try and get a photo of them, but we did have a dugong. So
They're like me with my shirt off.
And then we started the trip to the Whitsundays. So the trip from the Keppels through to the Whitsundays takes you through shoal water, and that's where the military do a lot of their training. And this is Supply Bay, and you can't read this sign here, but this sign here basically is live firing range.
Do not
enter. And you have to watch your notice to mariners before you go through there. So we were lucky there was no training at the time we sailed up there, but had there been, we wouldn't have been able to use that as one of our stops. So we spent a night at Supply, and then the next day we went to Curlew, and this is Curlew had a really narrow entry, but again, you end up behind this sandbar, which you can just see in the picture. And so again, it's a beautiful protected anchorage to just stop in. And there were monohulls as well as catamarans. So once you get through your little narrow passageway, depth wasn't a problem for anchoring.
We went in from the west, but you can get in from the east.
You can get in both sides, depending which side of the island you choose to come. And these photos are just from Curlew Island. Again, we did drop the dinghy and go in and do a few walks here and there and take a few pictures here and there. So that sort of was the southern part, I suppose. And I'm whizzing through because, of time. Then we went off to the Whitsundays. So we spent a little while, and I haven't done the track, but we spent a little while around a few different places at the Whitsundays, which are kind of split into the southern area. So Brampton Island is down here, if you can see my little mouse whizzing around. And we went from Brampton, we went through to Shore Island, which is in the Lindeman group here. Before we went to Whitehaven, through here. So we went to Whitehaven. We did some of there's Whitehaven. We also went to Border Island, so Catamaran Bay, and we spent some time going through here. We went around the top here. We saw our first whale up here, up here at Hayman. And we spent some time actually at Hamilton Island as well.
We did some circles.
We did do a few circles. This is where our daughter Jackie was going to be meeting us, but COVID put an end to that. So we sort of did a bit of exploring, and then we were going to meet her and redo some of that exploring, but she never got to join us. Yeah. So we just did it a couple of times. So here's some of the spots. So Brampton was the next island that also had another rundown, closed down resort. So again, a great beach, and their caretaker was a little bit hesitant about letting you walk around, whereas some of the others didn't mind. From Brampton, we went to Shore Island, or a place called Burning Point, and that's where we started. We discovered our first turtle, and this turtle kept coming up at different times of the day. It would come quite close to the boat, and then it's very hard to get a photo of it. So, but you did eventually. Yeah. And then I've just popped in a few different photos from different parts of the Whitsundays here. So we loved Sawmill Bay, gorgeous little quiet kind of spot. That's one side of it here where we anchored. This one, we took the dinghy round and then did another walk. So that's just from another perspective. We had Whitehaven Beach.
Good sheltered anchorage in Sawmill Bay.
Yeah. Whitehaven Beach, that's taken from one of the lookouts. this one is taken from the wet Sundays, looking sort of more back towards the mainland. And then Nara Inlet. So again, another walk, and so you get quite a combination of different sorts of scenery and different kinds of landscapes as well along the way. Said before we went to...
For those people listening, it was 13 degrees in Melbourne and we're all in stage 4 lockdown. Anyway, keep going, Fiona.
Thank you, Craig.
So as I said, we went to Hamilton Island. Gary and I actually had our COVID shot number 2 at Hamilton Island. So we went to Hamilton Island to meet our daughter who we never met. And we were going for a walk, went past the pharmacy, and it had this big sign, AstraZeneca shots given here. So we walked in and said, can we do our second shot? And they said, well, not right now, but we can do it at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning if you like. We said, you're on. So there we were on our holiday and had our second shot at Hamilton Island. Last thing I would have thought I'd be doing at Hamilton Island. But there you go.
There's always a lot of pricks at Hamilton Island.
Left Hamo though. More wax.
I ordered the whales for my daughter as we were coming out of the marina.
And there they were.
And they were.
And so we FaceTimed her. So we could show her the whales because she's kind of into whales. She likes whales. So that she could see them as well. But they were just in the channel between the, for those of you who've been up there, there's Hamilton Island and the island with the golf course. And they were actually in the channel between the two. We didn't see any whales after that though. So that was our whale experience. We went to Happy Bay then, which is actually we went to Lindeman I think first, but it doesn't matter. So Happy Bay is on Long Island, another closed down resort on one side of it, but the other side has
Palm Bay?
has a little resort. It's kind of a look after yourself BYO stuff kind of resort that we walked around to and had a bit of a look. We also spent a little bit of time at Plantation Bay, which is this one down here on the Lindeman Islands. And that was another really long walk.
That was our biggest walk.
Now, you walk along the old airstrip and then up a hill for ages, but the view's worth it when you get to the end.
I'm saying 10K at least.
I don't think it was that far. So but it was a big walk.
But a beautiful scenery.
Yeah.
You know, Fiona's only put a couple of photos in there, but it was just all around from the top of the hill.
So there's a question here. Is the Lindeman Island Resort still going?
No.
Okay, that's right. There was just a question from Ray.
No, it's another one that they actually had 2 caretakers on there, and they were the friendliest caretakers there, but of all the islands that we went to. But we kept on thinking everybody's in lockdown and they have all these resorts on islands that they could just, and they weren't that bad that they couldn't be done up quite easily, you know.
Take a bit of investment though, I think.
So
yeah.
No.
I've heard that the argument is going between government support and insurance. That's why they haven't done them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we decided then it was time to say goodbye to the Whitsunday Islands and keep moving. So we spent a little bit of time at Shute Harbour, and someone on one of the cruising websites, you know, because we'd been there before. Website. So the Women Who Sail Australia, I said, well, okay, where's a good spot to stop in Shute Harbour? And someone said, oh, actually, if you ring the charter boat companies, sometimes you can pick up one of their moorings for a few days and it's really cheap. So that's exactly what we did. So we hung off a mooring in Shute Harbour which is really close to the shore. So you can drop your dinghy in, run into the shore and walk up the hill and catch the bus into Airlie.
For $3, yeah.
So it was really convenient and nice and quiet. So that's something to keep in mind if ever you're doing it. Is I wouldn't have even thought of ringing the charter boat companies to see if I could hang off their mooring. So yeah, that was when they still had. It was interesting at the time the lockdown started in Melbourne. There were obviously people who were still on their charters. About 2 weeks later, you could see a lot more charter boats on moorings and in marinas than you could prior to that. One of the other things we did a lot when we were travelling around the Whitsundays is we'd listen to the charter boat skeds each morning or sometimes in the afternoon. It's quite entertaining to hear what people, to hear their questions, but it's also good to hear where people are staying, and then you can work out where you might or might not want to go based on the traffic. And you hear what the charter boat companies are recommending based on the weather forecasts as well. So, and for some of them, they would also say where the whales were or whatever. So it was quite interesting. And all sorts of things, you know, fixing toilets, engines breaking down, anchoring. That was actually the best. Yeah. The best one was someone radioed in and said, "Yep, we're here for the day. We've anchored. How much?" I think they were at Whitehaven Beach. "How much anchor chain have you put down?" "We've put down 20 metres. "And how much have you got below you?" "There's about 2 metres below us." And he said, "Right, well, it's you need to lift your anchor and you need to go out a bit further." He was on a monohull because when the tide goes out, you're not going to have any water there. So it was interesting, some of those kind of conversations with different people.
I've heard one. They rang up and it was their day 3 and they said, "We've used the 3 anchors on board. Where's the 4th anchor for day 4?
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Oh dear.
So that was a little bit of fun each day listening to the skits. Yeah. And then we moved from the Whitsundays towards Townsville. And originally, Townsville and Magnetic Island was our final destination because we'd planned to be doing Magnetic Island Race Week. And at this stage, we were still holding out a glimmer of hope that Melbourne would come out of lockdown and Queensland would let our friends come into Queensland from Melbourne. Highly unlikely, we know, but we still held on to it till I think 2 weeks before race week was due to start.
We held on to it for longer. We holding out hope that we'd get there, and we might just turn off the rest of the presentation. We don't want to see it.
That was Heidi. That was on cue. That was totally on cue. Not even rehearsed.
Oh no!
I would have stayed in your bedroom anyway. You would have had the other room.
No.
So really, race week. And we decided we'd go and explore Hinchinbrook Island.
No,
and
we had to get to
we got to
Townsville early so you could do a phone call.
Oh, we did too. Along the way, I did a job application because someone rang me and asked me if I was interested, and I said, of course I am. So we did have to get to Townsville a little bit earlier than we might have planned. Yeah. So our trip from Shute Harbour and Airlie Beach through to Townsville was quite quick, so that we could be somewhere where we had good Wi-Fi, so I could do a Skype interview. And I got the job, by the way. I'll start next week. So
I don't have to work anymore.
He does.
Oh, no.
So we did that. So we only spent a night at Jonah Bay at Cape Gloucester, and then through to Cape Upstart and through to Cape Bowling Green. So we did that trip quite quickly. Just one day each piece. I'd go back to Jonah Bay any day. It was a beautiful spot. I had another really nice sunset there as well. And then we spent a little bit of time in Townsville, and then we went through to
waiting for friends to come.
Yeah, friends who never joined us. Yeah. And then we went to Fantime Island here, which is one of the Palm Islands. And the weather got a bit miserable, very windy. In fact, it wasn't forecast to do it, but it got to about 35 knots.
38 knots.
So that was during the afternoon, fortunately. So by night time, we were able to sleep again. But we got up the next day and moved into the channel here. And the channel behind Hinchinbrook Island is so protected. It's unbelievable. It's really quite nice. The reason I put this here, I talked to you earlier about we use predict wind tracking. And so you can just see, this is in behind Hinchinbrook, and you can see where we went out, and you can then see, I must have taken it to show someone something one day, the little red dot is where the track last stopped. So we went out, visited somewhere, and we were on our way back. So it's just, and you can get whatever speed we were doing at the time as well. And we set it on, I think, 10-minute pings.
Yeah.
If you set it on any longer than that, you do actually start to cross land. So that's just, this is, there you go, there's my Jonah Bay sunset. Through to, when we got round this cape here, coming into Cape Upstart, it looked as though all these boats were coming towards us. They were actually fishing boats anchored here, and they were just waiting for dusk, I guess, and then they went out fishing. So we picked a pretty reasonable spot to stop, since all these fishing boats had stopped there. Cape Bowling Green is nothing like a bowling green. It was bouncy and
it wasn't that bad. All the online things says it was horrible, but we had 25 knots most of the night. It was windy, but it wasn't. There was no swell, so it was still a relatively comfortable anchorage. So yeah.
But that's where we came across dirty water after the beautiful blue waters, and then you had this dirty brown water. This is Hinchinbrook this is actually from the mainland, because when we were in Townsville, we did do a couple of road trips and day trips. It's a crocodile. It's a crocodile in the mangroves.
And where were we?
We were in Gayunda Creek.
Gayunda.
And this is Gayunda Creek at low tide from the boat.
Yeah.
And then this one here is Zoe Falls, which is on the outside of Hinchinbrook Island. Gorgeous little spot.
On the eastern side of Hinchinbrook.
We actually ended up walking up those rocks to get to the waterfall, and later we're told there is actually a track. We didn't need to walk through the rocks up the creek, but it's all part of the adventure. We then, I'll wrap it up because I know I'm running out of time. We then, from Hinchinbrook, we spent a good week and a half at Hinchinbrook.
It was beautiful.
Most of it in the channel because it was quite windy outside. So.
I imagine that's like the Amazon, because there's waterways and trees right on the shore, and it was just the most amazing place to go in behind. Yeah.
But you can't get off your boat.
Yeah. There's no beaches or anything like that.
A few crocodiles.
You can't go swimming.
So we did go to Magnetic Island, and we anchored at Horseshoe Bay, and we made sure we went ashore, and we caught the bus and spent some time at Arcadia and some time at Picnic Bay and a few different spots. And we did the Forts Walk on Magnetic Island, which allows you to get to, again, another walk uphill. It allows you to get to the top.
Heidi, please turn off now.
The Fort Walk was awesome. I was military, and it was just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Townsville and Magnetic Island, a lot of military history and stuff. So in Townsville on some of those days, we also visited some of their museums.
And they have an army museum as well. And yeah, it was really good.
This is Townsville. They have a big hill in town where you can go up and Castle Hill and do a view. So this is the pond, so outside. So when you can't get into the marina, you can actually safely anchor out here. It's nice and protected. Happy hours, yeah, it is shallow. Happy hours is in the marina in here. And here we are here. We've left the boat at Townsville. Because of COVID, we kind of went, well, we've got to get home. And we didn't believe we could sail through New South Wales and be allowed to get into Victoria, at least not at the time we were planning. And at the time we were planning, I think it was only last week or the week before, Dan Andrews opened the borders to Victorians to return from New South Wales. So we decided to leave the boat in Townsville, which means we've had to cyclone prep it. So we had to take the sails off. Yeah, everything's off. So she's pretty bare at the moment, all tied up, and everything's inside. So the beautiful part of a big boat like this is that you can fit everything inside when you pull it all apart. But, you know, we carted the sail up to the park and had to fold it. And things like that, yeah. So, and there we are. We did actually use our sails sometimes.
We did.
So they're
Haven't seen that shot before. Well, didn't know it had sails.
Get out of here.
So there you go. There's a whirlwind coverage of our 4 months away.
So what's the plans for happy hours now?
Sorry?
What's the plans for happy hours now? What's the plans for happy hours now?
What dates have you got free?
Well, apparently it's been cited on Airbnb. As long as you don't use Heidi's bedroom.
Yeah, Jackie might fight her for that bedroom.
Yeah.
We do plan to bring her home because we want to go and explore Tasmania.
Tasmania.
So we were listening a few weeks ago of the Tasmania trip. So we do want to do a couple of Tassie trips, and then in about 3 years' time, we'll probably do it all again.
Go and do it again.
Hopefully without COVID to prevent us from coming
You've
home.
got airfare credits to Townsville if you need some delivery crew home.
Oh, no.
But actually, one of the reasons we chose to leave it in Townsville is you can do a direct flight to Townsville and you don't have to transit through anywhere.
We know. We had tickets.
we all know, Fiona. Don't worry about that.
So, hopefully in the new year we might have a few long weekends in Townsville of all places.
Yeah.
But Magnetic Island and Hinchinbrook aren't a long trip from
they're
Townsville.
Beautiful. They are
for a
really
long
beautiful.
weekend.
Yeah. So yeah.
It's terrific. It looks like a fabulous trip, and you've given us all a great insight into it, and you've given us a few tips about a few things like that. It sounds really good. You're offside, and has got a lot to learn, but you did a great job.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I'm just here for my steering ability.
Yeah, he sails.
I sail.
Yeah. And your breakfast rum, you make a good breakfast, so I have to give you that. So.
And I eat cooks as well.
And I do a breakfast rum as well.
Yeah. He's not just a toy boy you've got, Fiona. You got to keep it.
He sails the boat, cooks the food.
No, Auto Helm sails the boat.
I went to work on Tuesday and Wednesday and asked the boss, "Where's the breakfast rums?"
Yeah, you went to work. Sorry, there's a bad connection here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, work.
Yeah,
I still do that.
Yeah, of course. Oh shit!
Ryan Blacklock, your prices have just gone up.
So, is anyone any questions about or any parts? Oh, hang on, there is a question here. Sorry,
you're in charge of that, Jacko.
Yeah, I'm in charge of that.
Yeah.
I was Rod Austin just pissing in your pocket. You want you to take your shirt off and leave your hat on.
Sorry, I can put our pre-photo in.
No, you don't. No pre-photos.
I deleted it.
Oh, sorry, Fiona deleted that.
Yeah, well, it's not after 8:30. It's a PG rating, this show.
Okay.
No. So no, we had a fantastic time. Yeah. So
They look fabulous.
It was fabulous.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Fiona and Gary, look, it's a fantastic presentation, really, really interesting. What I would like to know is, how do you go about food? Do you actually have dehydrated food or fresh food, or do you have lots of food in a freezer? Like
All
your
of
main
all
meal,
of
things
those
like
things. We have a fridge which is quite large and a freezer.
that.
So
Right.
we have both on the boat. Fresh food.
Mhm.
We do have some dehydrated things, but we never open them.
Good.
So they're there for emergency only and
Yeah.
tucked away. We have
Right.
fresh food all the time.
Right.
And a Weber, a little Weber.
Lynn, that is a
Sorry,
fabulous question. I've never been on a boat that's got a Weber. It's got a coffee maker. It's got a
You're-
soda stream. It's got
You were spoiled.
and it's got 2 sinks. Yeah,
That is incredibly civilized. I
it
can't
was
believe it.
civilized.
Most flats don't have that.
Yeah.
And we do.
When we saw-
There's not enough room in big flats.
When we ran into Brenda Marsh, the first thing she came on with, she's on there with Eric, and she goes, "Eric, it has 2 sinks. I want one." Eric wasn't keen.
She did, didn't she?
Yeah. Yeah.
When are you going to upgrade, Craig?
Not bad, thanks yourself.
Yeah. That time to move on from the S80?
So no.
Oh, well, I'll keep the S80. We can still upgrade. I'm
Ah, okay.
looking.
Hey, Ryan, we were strapping 2 S80s together
Great idea.
S160.
because they're cheap.
One can be the
Because they're
fridge, and then one to live in.
Righto.
Yeah, that's it. That's the way it is. Yeah, no. So
Mm.
Keep
Leo,
putting pressure on him, Ryan.
Harness him.
Keep putting pressure on him, Ryan. I've sent him a few boats, don't worry. He won't buy me the Cooks and 50, but I can tell you that.
I do have a few
Keep working on him.
people. Yeah.
Right.
So far, I had a Volvo 60. What else? Devaki 2.
They're all good options.
That's
Yeah,
right.
sure.
something with 2 holes, Jacko.
Yeah.
We don't, I
Yeah.
didn't have to cook with my back against the mast.
Like
Kevin knows what I mean.
Yeah.
So it is the beautiful thing about the catamaran is that you're flat. So I didn't have to do any of this tippy stuff anymore.
Yeah.
It was really quite nice.
It used to look like a spider on one for the road. It's stuck around everything trying to cook was something.
no, Jacko got bacon and eggs for breakfast every morning.
Yeah, I did. That was just to get me to the next harbour before I left. That's it. It got me to Mooloolaba anyway. All those breakfasts are beautiful.
I kept you on.
You took a photo of me with an apple, though. I've still got that photo of you with the apple. And everyone-
Yeah.
And the fruit bowl. And the fruit bowl.
Yeah.
that was disgusting. We got rid of that.
I'm going to buy a couple of S80s and a couple of 4x2s,
Yep.
and I'll be well away. No problems at all.
That's what you want,
I've
son.
got an S80 you can buy, Tony. If you like.
Hey, Paulie, Fiona wouldn't let me buy it.
I tried.
My Melbourne boat.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let me buy it. I
Yeah.
mentioned it.
We'll give you a discount. You know that.
I know. Jacko told me how much I could get.
Oh, did he now?
Under the bus.
For Hobbo's members only, that is.
Yeah, I'm a member.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Paul.
oh, exactly. Yeah.
He's buying mine so I can get the
I
bus.
isn't a member. Not a member.
No,
Not
Kevin's
a member.
Kevin's
Not a
coming on page.
He will be soon. He will be soon.
Kevin doesn't care. He just wants to work on the main on any of those boats.
Yeah.
That's true.
Oh, dear.
Very
Yeah.
true.
Very true.
I'll tell you what, tonight, that's been a great night tonight. It's just been fantastic, great fun. I've really enjoyed it. And I think these nights are so easy every week, and they're just fabulous for the club. I reckon it's fantastic. Thanks, Rod, for organising them.
Yeah.
Well done, Rod, for that too.
Thank you,
And
Rod.
If
Thanks.
any other questions, otherwise we'll let. I was going to say Gary and Fiona, but I think now it's Fiona and Gary. So we'll let them off the hook.
Since when didn't you know that she was in charge?
I think it's when the first evening that you called me fake Fiona. And you're real Fiona. And where's my bloody hat and sunglasses, bitch?
Oh, yeah. I was supposed
I
to.
meant to put them on.
Yeah, I thought you might. Oh no, there he goes. We've sent him off. Let's all go now while Gary's gone.
Jacko left his hat and sunglasses in Mooloolaba.
Well, whereabouts in
Looking
Mooloolaba?
after them.
Wait, I think in the surf.
I think
The
you
surf
left
club.
He was so pissed he couldn't remember.
Yeah, I was by myself pissed. Yes, right.
So I've
So-
been caring for them.
So I got
Oh,
so I left and I got home, and the very next morning I got this photograph with Fiona looking like that. Like the real Fiona arrived, fake Fiona went home. And then real Fiona said to me, "What does fake Fiona mean?" And I says, "You'll never know." It was a beautiful 3.5 weeks.
That's where we left it.
That's where we
I
left
have
it.
no idea what Jacko and Gary got up to, but that's okay.
That'll be right. Okay. I'm not allowed to stay in Heidi's bedroom, but keep out of mine.
No one was hurt,
That's right.
So you say.
apparently.
Okay, any more questions? I think it might be about time there, Rob. I think we might end there. It's been
Are
a
we
relaxing evening. I've got to go to bed. I've got
Say
gotta
goodbye. Yeah, it was awesome.
Bye with
I
my
loved
pipe.
it. Yeah. Thank you,
I'm
everyone.
to go with my pipe.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.